Hello, and welcome to my introduction to ephemera in the Winterthur Library. I'm Jean Solensky, librarian for the Joseph Downes collection of manuscripts and printed ephemera. The Winterthur Library is a research center for the study of art, material culture, and everyday life in America from the 1600s into the 1900s. While you may be aware of our extensive rare book and manuscript collections, you may not be as familiar with our ephemera collections. So if you're wondering exactly what ephemera is and why we collect it, keep listening. My backdrop today is a piece from our Miscellaneous photograph collection showing a circa 1900s kitchen. So for now, I will exit to focus on the slideshow and will return at the end. So I will highlight items from the collection along with two special groups and review how important ephemera can be for many avenues of research. It's a funny sounding word, but it encompasses a wide range of material. Generally, it means items that served a purpose for a short time and were not meant to last. So think of all the many scraps of paper in your home or office, all the junk mail you receive, all those receipts, postcards, and tickets that you keep for a brief time and then finally throw out. Ephemera can be further broken down into groups by purpose and length of time saved. The Downes collection has many collections of these pieces that are one or several sheets or pages. We group them by type and have databases listing pertinent information on individual pieces for easy access. One very large collection was donated by Maxine Waldron in the 1970s and early 1980s. She was an artist, teacher, and doll collector who amassed a wonderful collection of children's toys, games, and paper dolls. The dates ranges over several centuries, providing a continuum of material related to children's amusements. Paper dolls, such as the Swedish Nightingale Jenny Lind, also illustrate fashion history. The Grossman collection consists of nearly 250,000 pieces of lithography and chromolithography, with many types of ephemera. John Grossman was a graphic artist who began collecting in the 1970s. The collection is enormous and includes a proof of and the first printed English Christmas card, which was conceived by Sir Henry Cole. He got tired of writing so many letters and commissioned artist John Calcott Horsley to design a holiday card that he could merely sign and send. An estimated 1,000 copies were printed, with the remaining sold for 1 shilling each, a rather modest beginning to today's multi-billion-dollar industry. Only a handful of these exist. And now I'll highlight some ways in which ephemera is used for research. An obvious avenue of research for material culture scholars is looking into goods and services offered. Here are trade cards and labels for different providers and a product label for food. We can see the rise of big business through invoices. Early American ones in the 18th century into the 19th are usually handwritten ones between two individuals. The Mingo invoice is a fairly new addition to Downes, and there are several pieces related to this debt that she was not able to pay, and a third party stepped in. Notable is the designation of Mingo as a free Negro, and the third party as a free Negro house carpenter who owned property. More research, possibly in tax records, can be done with this group to shed some light on the individuals. The second invoice is from a New York City department store, A.A. Vantine and Company, with a printed billhead. Printed billheads became more common during the 19th century. They sported information on top and sometimes illustrations of storefronts, factories, and people working that are highly informative. One can also study artistic styles. Here are bookplates from 3 centuries displaying very different imagery. Printing techniques changed over time as new methods were developed. Woodcuts engravings were the modes in the 18th and early 19th centuries. As color printing like chromolithography developed, we see very colorful pieces as the 19th century progressed. Also very important to material culture scholars are photographs of homes and stores, much more realistic compared to paintings and prints. This dining room shown is from a middle-class family in the late 1890s, a very relatable room. If you look closely at the second photograph, you can see the types of items sold and how they were displayed in the dry goods store. Also of great interest to many of our researchers are images of people at work, very difficult to find before photography. Seeing working conditions, spaces, and clothing of people can tell us so much. On the left is an illustration of sailmakers at their task, found on an 1815 membership certificate for New York's Society of Master Sailmakers. The photograph shows women in a textile mill, textiles being a traditionally female-friendly occupation over time. Fascinating too are images and views of streets and buildings to document places. One can now search online to see if and how views have changed. The slave market, so noted on the bottom of this stereo, still stands. It became a tourist destination after the Civil War and a site for festivals and protests in the 20th century. A civil rights monument is now close by. Bird's eye views and maps show places in their early years. While a family may not leave behind diaries, bits and pieces can help reconstruct their lives. This collection includes photographs, membership cards like this NAACP card, mortgage papers, utility and tax bills, insurance policies, and a few letters. Unfortunately, most people in the photographs are not identified, and even stumped some descendants who viewed them a few years ago. I'm still hoping that someday we will know more about the Craig family. Now onto some themes. This shopping game from Philadelphia department store Strawbridge and Clothier from the early 1900s leads children through different departments with the goal of climbing the stairway to Toyland. So treating children as consumers is not as novel an approach as we think. The study of foodways have been very popular in recent years, with menus such as this one providing a glimpse into what people ate. Leisure and recreation activities. Here, Laura Klopp sports a shorter skirt as she pedals her bicycle down the road. The Empire City Skating Rink opened in 1868 and was quite popular for a time, but suffered in the 1880s and was razed in 1893. The stereo shows a classroom decorated with maps and charts on the wall, very typical for the time period. This one happens to be from a Shaker community. The celibate sect did take in families, splitting them up by gender, and orphans, and provided education and training to children. Travel has always been a necessity and an adventure for people. Fashion history with paper dolls that I touched upon earlier. Here are more examples from the Waldron collection, both handmade and printed ones. Holidays are well represented in the Grossman collection through photographs, postcards, product labels, and more. Health and wellness. This dentist sold 2 incorruptible teeth in tooth powder to a client. Death and mourning. These pieces document funeral services and mourning customs. So that was only a tip of the iceberg. Every piece of ephemera tells a story that only needs a little time and effort to uncover. So if you do want to read more about ephemera, here are some general works and some specific studies. Of course, there are societies if you get the ephemera bug. The Ephemera Society of America hosts an annual conference and fair in March in Greenwich, Connecticut, along with other events during the year. So ephemera is all around us if you'd like to start collecting. To see more examples from the Winterthur Library, check out our digital collections at contentdm.winterthur.org. We have advertising ephemera, invoices, book plates, photographs, cigar labels, calendars, and more. So hope you enjoyed learning why we collect ephemera. Thank you for taking the time to hear more about the Winterthur Library's ephemera collections.